Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. We're just going to wait a couple of more minutes to see if there are more people joining, and then we'll start. So today's session is the late welcome session for international students who couldn't attend the original welcome session. It will be divided into 3 parts. The first part will be some essential information regarding your visa conditions and some general information that we think will be useful for people who are new to the UK. And it will be presented by me, myself, Elisa. And then the second session will be presented by my colleague, Henry. So he will talk through in more details the work conditions attached to your visa and some of the post-study work and visa options after you graduate. The last and final session will be presented by Rihanna from the Careers and Enterprise team, and she will go through briefly what herself and her department can offer when it comes to career advice and career planning. I think let's wait until 12:05, and then we'll start. We also have Miranda here as well. So she's the student transitions and campus experience manager. So she's the one who's oversees the whole welcome session. Okay, we're at 12:05 now, so I'm going to start. So first of all, a brief introduction of our department. So Henry and I are from the Advice and Counseling Service Department. And within that department, we provide immigration and visa advice. So both of us are international student advisors, but that's not the only services that our department provides. We also have advisors and counselors that can provide financial, welfare, legal, emotional, or counseling services. And all our services are free and confidential. So meaning we won't share your information to other people, including staff members from other departments, without your consent. We have our own website. We also have 2 social media channels on Instagram and X, formerly Twitter. And for international students, we also have a work blog. So we post regularly some blogs that are so the website will provide more general information that cater to all international students, whereas blogs, we have posts that are more specifically tailored to groups of students in certain situations. So for example, previously we have a post specifically for US students when they're applying for their student visa, because their visa application center appointments works a little bit different than applicants in other country. So I advise that you to go through our webpage, go through our social media, follow us, so that you can have up-to-date information. I've created a checklist here when it comes to your visa conditions, what you should watch out for during your studies at Queen Mary. So the first thing is, if you need to have your BRP collected, collect it now and then put it somewhere safe. Most of you, if you've applied for your student visa application from outside the country, and if you're not an EEA or Swiss national, you will probably need to collect your BRP cards. And where to collect it will be stated on your UKVI decision letter when you've been first granted your student visa. So if you're not sure, refer back to that letter. Put your BRP card somewhere safe. You don't need to have it in your person while you're inside the UK. It's only when you're traveling outside the UK that you need to bring the BRP card with you. This is because when you're re-entering the UK border, you may be asked to provide the card to the Border Force officer to show that you have immigration permission to be re-entering the UK. The second point is very important for BRP holders. I think this is probably the most important bit of information to take away during my session, is to create your UKVI account so that you can access your e-visa after you've collected your BRP. All your BRPs should have the expiry date of the 31st of December 2024. This is not a mistake, even though most of you should have a longer duration on your student visa. This is because the UKVI is switching towards a digital immigration system, and they're replacing physical immigration documents such as BRPs. So what BRP holders need to do is to go to the gov.uk website to create a UKVI account with your BRP number. And once the account has been created, you should receive notifications from UKVI, usually by email, that your e-visa is ready and you can go and view it. This will be very important from the start of next year when your BRP expires, because an expired BRP will not be deemed as a valid immigration document to prove your rights and immigration status in the UK. So you need to have your e-visa to prove that you have certain rights in the UK. For example, right to work to employers or right to study when you re-enroll next academic year. So here we have a QR code. This will direct you to the gov.uk website, specifically for the UKVI account creation and how to access your e-visa and what functions there are within your account. Thirdly is after you've collected your BRP or after you've created your UKVI account, to check that the visa conditions, specifically the work conditions and the visa duration, are correct. So most of you will be studying full-time at degree or above level. You should be able to work 20 hours per week during term time, and it should state on your immigration document whether it's BRP or it's your e-visa. My colleague Henry will talk more about the work conditions attached to a visa in his session. For the visa duration, most of your course should be 12 months or longer, and therefore you should have 4 extra months after your course end date on your CAS on your student visa. So for example, if your course is going to end in June next year, your student visa should be running until October next year. You need to report any of your personal changes to both the university and UKVI, including changes of your surname, for example, if you've got married, or minor changes like change of your UK address or simply your email address or phone number, so that both the university and UKVI, they have up-to-date records within their system, and they can contact you with the correct contact details if they need to. any changes to your course may have visa implications. So, for example, if you decide to interrupt your studies or if you want to change to a completely unrelated course, all these will have implication to your student visa, in the sense that the universities may have to report to UKVI to have your student visa cancelled. So when that happens, when before making this kind of decision, we would advise that you to go to our webpage to do your research and possibly to come and see us before making a decision official. Another type of academic changes is if you need to resits, especially during your final year, you can check with us whether you can extend your student visa to have a longer duration on your student visa to cover the resit period. And then because you're here as a student with a student visa, there's every expectation of you to be attending your classes and be fully academically engaging as you should be. If you cannot participate in class, for example, you're sick that day, you need to inform your school so that you can get an approved absence. If you stop attending your classes, stop being academically engaging for a certain period of time, this will have implication to your student visa as well, in the sense that the university will have to report to UKVI again and then to have your student visa cancelled. Graduate route. So as of the current immigration rules, after you've completed your course, if your course is eligible and while your student visa is still valid, still running, you will be eligible to apply for the graduate route. That's why it's particularly important to check right now that you have the correct student visa duration. Because if you've been given shorter duration than you should be, you may not receive your final official results before the student visa expiry date, and this could impact your eligibility to apply for your graduate visa. So the UK, we have a lot of organizations and social media platforms to offer people who are new to the UK, who are not from the UK, things that are free and affordable that they can do while they're here. So I'd advise that you to check out their website, their social media, to join activities that may interest you. On our website, we also have some detailed guidance when it comes to money and banking, including how to choose and open a bank account in the UK, preparing for a budget, some money saving tips, some of the common practice of scammers so that you can be aware of them. Unfortunately, in recent years, we've seen scammers and fraudsters targeting international students. So I advise you to go to our web page and have a read. How to apply for council tax exemption, and if you are encountering any sort of financial difficulties during your course, you're welcome to speak to our welfare advisors as well. So on our webpage, we have a contact form where you can contact us. Another very important thing when arriving in the UK is to register with a GP. So a GP is a general practitioner. So they're basically a doctor that will be your first point of contact for any issues with your health and well-being. So that's why it's very important to register with one. Don't leave it until you're sick, because it will take some time for them to process your registration application, and they could refuse your application if they're not accepting new NHS patients. So register now instead of when you're sick. If you're living on campus at one of the Queen Mary's residences, or if you're living in postcodes E1, E2, E3, or E14, you can register with the University Student Health Service Centre. So that centre can serve as your GP. If you do not live in these areas, you can go to the NHS website, and by typing in your postcode, the website would generate a list of nearby clinics or surgeries that you can register. Yeah, that's the end of my part. Now I'll pass over to Henry to talk through his bit.
Thanks, Elisa. Yeah, just give me 1 second. I'll just share my screen. It's got a quick PowerPoint to go through. There we go. Right, so this part is going to be in 2 halves. So first, you're going to hear from myself. So I'm Henry. I work in advice and counselling service with Elisa, doing the exact same role. So I'm going to talk about visas and things like that related to work. And then Rihanna, a colleague from careers and enterprise, she's going to come in and talk you through from her side in the careers part of it. But let's make a start. So what we're going to cover. So yeah, myself, we're going to go through the visa restrictions around work. So what work you can and cannot do based on what kind of visa you have, mainly focusing on people with student visas, taking the assumption that's what the majority of people will have today. Some things about what's the legal limits in terms of pay in the UK. Briefly say how tax and national insurance works in the UK, but we're not going to do any specialist stuff on that, just an overview of what basically you do or do not need to worry about. A quick note on visas for after study as well. And then Rihanna's going to talk you through things through Career Enterprise, so who they are, the QM Careers Hub, and different opportunities that will be open to you during your time with us, support for students with a disability, diversity, inclusion, and also events as well. So first, about working on your visa and if you can work on it or not. So if there's anyone on the call today holds it on a visitor, so that's where you've either got a visitor visa or you've entered the UK without a visa and been given entry as a visitor, you generally can't do most amounts of work in the UK. The only exceptions are for some volunteering is allowed, as long as it's with a defined charity, and that's limited to 30 days. And also remote work can be possible for an overseas company, but it's a little bit complicated. So if you are thinking of working in the UK remotely as a visitor, do seek advice before doing any of that. But for student visa holders, you are allowed to work on your visa. It'll either be limited to 10 hours per week if you're below degree level, or 20 hours per week if you're degree level and above. So that would include anyone on an undergraduate or master's course or PhD course. Full-time work is also allowed outside of term time and in vacations. And assessed placements are allowed as well if it forms part of your course. And there's some additional work restrictions we'll cover later as well. And we'll also take a closer look at the hours limits and how it works when you move in and outside of term time. Finally, if you are on a different kind of visa, then whether you can work on your visa or not is completely tied to that visa. Your studies are not related to it. So hopefully you should know whether you can or cannot work on the visa you hold. So yeah, let's just take a look at some working week examples and how the 20 hours per week limit applies to them. So we've got one example here where someone has worked Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 6 hours, 7 hours, 7 hours, and then straight away worked another 6 hours Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So this is allowed. So even though between Friday and Wednesday, which is only a week in between, they've worked over 20 hours within a 7-day period, it is allowed because the calculation is made from each Monday to Sunday block. So it's not a rolling 7 days. It's always just making sure that you don't work more than 20 hours in any Monday to Sunday period during term time. So this is an example of where someone could end up working too much. So in this example, the person, even though they've worked no hours the second week at all, in the first week, because they worked 21 hours, during a Monday to Sunday period, it would be seen as being in breach of their visa conditions because of that amount in 1 week. It's not on average over any kind of time. So you could just work 1 week over your hour limit and then never work again. You were seen as being in breach of your visa conditions by doing that. But how it works when we enter vacation periods is a little bit different. So generally vacations will start at the end of the week. And as soon as you're into a vacation period, any kind of working hours restrictions is removed. So as long as you're still in, for like in this example, the Monday to Friday period is still less than 20 hours, as soon as they've entered the vacation period, all those hours restrictions are lifted and they can start working full time for the duration of that vacation until they're back in term time again when the 20-hour per week comes in again. This also applies when you're at the very end of your course. So once you finish your course and you passed the end date on your CAS and you've got no more study left to do, then additionally that also the cap on hours is lifted and you can start working full time from the end of that, from the start of the end of your studies until at least your visa expires. So there's some other working restrictions it's very important to know about as a student visa holder. So student visa holders cannot take a permanent full-time job. They cannot be self-employed and they cannot engage in business activities. And we'll look a bit closer at what that means in a second. Provide services as a professional sports person or entertainer, if that applies to you in any way. And it's important to know any of these restrictions, including the working hours from the previous slides, do apply to any work you do in the UK, even if it's remote work for a non-UK company, everything will be applicable. But on the reverse of that, any work you do outside the UK, so for example, if you went home during term time and you had a job that was restricted, that would be fine as long as it's work that's being done outside the UK and none of that work is being done while you're physically in the UK. Let's take a closer look at these 2 points because they're a bit more, they come up quite a lot and sometimes people are unsure what they mean. So I've got some examples of what could be seen as either being self-employed or engaging in a business activity. So self-employed will ever be, so if you're either working for yourself or sometimes seen as being a freelancer. And I put a point on there about what's referred to as gig economy jobs. So these are often jobs that associate like with places like Deliveroo or Uber and places like that. A lot of times their workers are not workers for the company. They're seen as being self-employed and they just work freelance for the company. So it's always been careful about these things. If there's any doubt when you're getting, say, like a job offer from a company and whether you're going to be defined as an employee of that company or freelance working for that company, do double check with them, because if not, so if they're suggesting you need to do your own tax or you need to declare yourself as self-employed, then that'd be something you would be restricted from doing while on your student visa. Some things about internet selling for profit. So the important note there is for profit. If you have some old items you want to get rid of, like some clothes you're just trying to get rid of and you just want to make a bit of money back, that's fine. It's the idea of buying things, selling from a profit, which could be seen as a business activity by doing so. And also, yeah, trading in stocks or crypto. So this is one of those things, again, where holding stocks is absolutely fine. But trading stocks while you're in the UK could be seen as someone engaging within that business activity of trading. So it's again something we do advise when you're in the UK, if you are holding stocks, is to effectively hold them while you're in the UK. It can get a bit complicated than that, and we don't really have any more advice we can give you except that we would advise not to do it. But yeah, there is some more guidance online about that. So just a quick one on the difference between volunteering and voluntary work. So volunteering, so this is when it says no contract or obligation to do the work. It's unpaid, apart from maybe reasonable expenses. And it's normally for a charity or public organisation. So this kind of work, volunteering, does not count towards the working hours restrictions. Voluntary does count towards working hours, and this is where there's an obligation to work for the work obligation to work or for work to be provided. Don't necessarily need to have a contract, or if you're rewarded for the work in some way, this does count towards working hours. And if you're ever unsure, it's speaking to the organisation for confirmation. So yeah, don't just think because I'm not getting paid for it, that means it's not going to count towards my working hours restrictions. Even if you're not getting paid, it still count towards it. But here are some links and things to volunteering opportunities via the Students' Union, if you want to check them out at all. So employer checks. So in the UK, you'll be required, if you ever start a job, the employer will need to check you've got the correct immigration status to do the job they're employing you to do. And that can be done in a few different ways. So they'll likely ask you for a share code to prove your status. And if you have a UK VI account, so Elisa covered briefly about the move to e-visas. So if you set up an e-visa, you'll have a UK VI account, or you've possibly already got one from applying for your visa. You'll be able to log into that account, generate a share code, provide that to the employer, and they'll be able to use that code just to check that you've got the right working restrictions for your job. If you still just have a BRP card and you've not set up a UK VI account, then you'll go to a specific government website, and it's very similar. You'll just use your BRP to generate a share code. But to emphasize what Elisa was saying in her presentation, it is really important you do get your e-visa and UK VI set up, because by the end of this year, the UK VI account route will be the only way in which you can set up, in which you can prove your immigration status in the UK. So minimum wage quickly. So in the UK, we have legal limits on what someone has to be paid. So to pay someone under these amounts would be illegal. And that works out if, for example, you were on given a salary that you're going to get paid a certain set amount for the work you're doing. If the average amount of hours you're working brings you under the legal minimum wage, then that would be illegal as well. So for anyone 18 to 20, it's £8.60, and anyone 21 and above, it's £11.44. But these are due to increase again in April 2025. So the higher the national living wage will be £12.21 per hour. But you'll also sometimes see this logo on employers. So it's an optional thing that some employers decide to sign up to, which is called Living Wage Foundation. And the Living Wage Foundation proposes what's a more realistic wage for someone to be able to live on in the UK. And it's different rates for people working outside London or inside London. So for inside London and Living Wage Foundation, employers are signed up for it, will pay everyone at least £13.85 per hour. But this is not the legal requirement at all. This is just optional. And for the legal minimum wage, there's no differential between people working in or outside of London in terms of what's the legal limit they can be paid. So tax and national insurance. So UK employees don't normally need to do any of their own tax or submit their own tax returns. They'll be automatically deducted by the employer if you do need to pay anything. Because if you're earning under a certain amount, you may not be required to pay any national insurance or tax, and then any national insurance or tax will be paid on top of that. But we don't provide any kind of specialist advice on that, so we're not tax advisors. But there is loads of information on the government web pages and things like that, if you do want to get a better understanding of how tax and national insurance is calculated in the UK and whether you could end up paying some while you're working here. But getting a national insurance number is very important. So we recommend applying for one if you have any intention of working in the UK. All workers need one, but it's completely free to apply. You can get paid while waiting for your national insurance number as well. And it's important to emphasise to only ever apply from the UK government web pages for the national insurance number. Unfortunately, there is quite a few scams out there and directing people to fake web pages or asking them to pay money. But yeah, it's always free. And yeah, same with tax. Unfortunately, there can be a lot of targeted scams around this and targeting people who are unfamiliar with the process. So do make sure to check any government web pages. And yeah, you can also refer to what's called Action Fraud, which is a public body linked to the police that deals with a lot of scams and things out there, and they collect details of it and provide advice on what to do if you are targeted. So very quickly, as my last point, just cover post-study work visas and sort of working on in the UK after the student visa. So the first thing is, this is quite a relatively new change, but it's no longer possible for people to switch into work visas before they complete the course, with an exception for PhD students who can do so after they've been studying for 2 years. But the majority of people who are not PhD students, you'll have to wait until you've completed your course to be allowed to switch within the UK to any work visa. So if you are speaking to an employer and they're saying, oh, you know, come work for us full time before you complete your course, we'll sponsor you for a work visa and you can just switch into that while you're completing your course, that won't be possible to do from the UK anymore. So be waiting until after you complete your course and then being able to switch into work visas. But the graduate visa is probably what most people will be thinking if they're intending to work in the UK after the studies. So the key points of it is that you need to achieve a degree. So this can be a bachelor's, master's, or PhD. Whether what your classification is for that degree. So if you're doing an undergraduate, it doesn't matter if it's a third, a 2-1, a first. It's as long as you've received a degree. And similarly for masters, as long as you're receiving the master, it doesn't matter if you get a pass, a distinction, or merit. Just getting the award's enough. You cannot have had the graduate visa before. So if you've done a previous qualification in the UK, had the graduate visa for any length of time, you wouldn't be eligible again to get it after you're completing your course with us. You need to have had a student visa and study in the UK for a certain length of time, which basically means if you're doing like a 1-year master's, you've had a student visa for that master's and you've done all the required study in the UK for it. And you can only apply from the UK while the student visa is still valid. So, for example, it wouldn't be possible to complete your course on your student visa, leave the UK, and then try and apply for it after your student visa is expired, like in a year's time or something. You only have the one opportunity to apply for it in the time on your student visa after you've completed your course and if you achieve your intended award. And yeah, we have loads more information on our webpage. You can just search for the graduate visa on there. A quick final reminder about our services. I know Lisa's covered it already. But yeah, where we are, our social media and things like that. And I'm going to move on to Rihanna, who's going to talk you through careers and enterprise. And I'll keep on control of this for you, Rihanna.
Thank you, Henry. And yes, good morning or good afternoon now, and nice to have you all here on the call. So my name is Rihanna, and I work as a careers consultant for international students in the Careers and Enterprise team at Queen Mary. And what that means is that I support all international students with their career ambitions, whether it's wanting to stay in the UK or return home. So if you haven't already come to see us in our building, we run lots of fantastic workshops and employer-led events. And we are based in the IQ East building currently, which is just down the road from the Sainsbury's on Mile End Road, kind of opposite People's Palace across the road and back towards Mile End Station. So if you haven't already come to see us, we hope to see you there very soon. So in the next few slides, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we have on offer as part of our team. So while you're at Queen Mary and you're looking at the Careers and Enterprise events, you may see this little symbol coming forward, and this is our East model. So lots of our different activities are aligned to the different career stages in your journey, and that is explore, acquire, showcase, and transition. So if you are still exploring your different options, you're not sure what you might want to do, or you're looking at acquiring the skills to showcase them to the employers, or transitioning into the workplace and then even coming and giving back and speaking to our kind of current students on an event, you'll be able to navigate the different models this way. We have a slightly different career timeline for international students. You might see it aligned a little bit more like this, depending on if you have managed to engage while you have already, while you've been applying to the university here. If you are a postgraduate international student, the East model still works, but usually they align from Explore to Acquire, Showcase and Tell from years 1 to 3 and then into your graduate place of work. Whereas for postgraduate students, the 1-year timeline's a little bit more snappy, a bit quicker. So we sometimes say pre-arrival, you'll be looking at UK recruitment tactics. Maybe you've already done this, maybe you haven't. Then in induction week, you'll come along to events like this, which is why we're offering this again for you. Then you'll move into hopefully going to some workshops, learning about commercial awareness, learning about job hunting in the UK before understanding that in more depth by coming to one of our drop-in sessions, and then you should be ready to showcase your skills and talent to a UK employer. So if you're thinking which stage you might be at, have a think about which you most resonate with, and then you can start thinking about which types of sessions you might want to come to make sure you're prepared for the graduate labour market. Some of you may have found this session you're here today in through the QM Careers Hub. If you haven't and you haven't already signed up, please do. You can scan that QR code there to set up your profile. Not only do we offer a number of different appointments and events, you get to meet employers, there are careers fairs, there are alumni panels, different programs that you can work through to navigate the world of work in the UK or overseas. And additionally, we send a monthly newsletter to international students about specific careers opportunities for those with a non-UK passport, for example, and in your home country. But also there's a central newsletter that will go out to you with all of the different information you might want to use to empower yourself for a career in the UK. So one of the strands of our team in Careers and Enterprise is the enterprise side, and there are some fantastic opportunities for you to get involved with. They have different programs, including Q Hack, Q Incubator, and Q Accelerator, whether you are nurturing a new business idea, whether you're looking to expand and fund it, or whether you're looking to just kind of explore your innovative problem-solving skills in a hack-style weekend. We have these different funding awards, so if you were to have a business idea that you think could upscale, there are these different funding awards available. I think one of them has just been released. So if you can look on our website, you'll find out more about that. Essentially, you've put forward a business idea, and some of our international graduates have been the most successful entrepreneurs at Queen Mary. So I have faith in you if you have an idea like that you want to expand on. Just worth noting that we have a program called Q Freelancer, which is about building upon kind of a side hustle idea. Some of the programs you'll find that you either won't be able to click onto them or they won't be appearing for you until you are a few months before the end of your course date. This relates to everything that Henry and Eliza were saying about not being able to be self-employed while you're on a student visa. So if you are finding that you're clicking on a certain program and you're unable to do it, it might just be that because of your student visa status, we wait towards the end of your course to open that up for you so that you don't have any conflicts by doing work that you're not supposed to be doing. So introducing the enterprise team, as it's just me here today. So Julie is the team manager, and then Jack and David work in the team. So if you are thinking about booking an appointment with any of them, hopefully that will help familiarize them and be a friendly face for you. Another great program we offer in the Careers and Enterprise team is the Student Consultancy Project. This you apply for this like you apply for a job, so making sure that you have a great application for all of these different programs is vital. There are a few different intakes through the year, but essentially a business comes to Queen Mary and they say we have this business problem, and the student consultants then apply to work on this project to create an innovative business solution for a real company and present it back. And this is something fantastic for your CV. You know, this is something you could probably do if you have a part-time job yourself, if you're looking to expand on your business knowledge and help a company be more successful. But this is a formalized way of doing things that we have at Queen Mary. We also have the Q Temps agency, and this is temporary resourcing, so temporary work in and around campus and for local jobs to kind of Mile End area. Lots of businesses will approach us or internal teams and say, we have an area that we need 3 months of help on. It might be part-time. Typically it's part-time, because even for a home student without the student visa restrictions, we don't advise students to work more than 15-20 hours a week, just to make sure you can balance your studies. So it's a great kind of ad hoc temporary work that you can utilize to upskill or to earn some part-time money while you're a student. Micro internship. So this question kind of answers the question I've seen in on the chat about how you take on more internship-based work experience when you have a 20-hour-a-week limit. So yes, lots of internships or kind of more professional type roles that you may see advertised on more traditional websites, they may look like they're full-time in the first instance. But a program we run at Queen Mary, and something you could also ask employers if you found an interesting internship, is about micro internships. So this is, the internship is a certain number of hours rather than a certain number of weeks full time. And it might be a 40-hour project, for example, and you spread that across 1 to 3 months. So you're doing a certain number of hours per week spread along a longer period of time to give you the same benefits of an internship without having to be full-time, and something that will then align with your student visa working restrictions. Just a note about diversity and inclusion. So if you are coming to an event with the Careers and Enterprise team or any team at Queen Mary, we always want to make sure you are as comfortable as possible. So if you have any attributes that you think it will be helpful for you to have extra time, we can make reasonable adjustments for you. If you want to talk to us in advance and let us know, we can extend appointments if you have anything that you think would mean that you benefit from that. That also is the same for any workshops you attend. So please feel free to contact us if there's any adjustments we can make to make you more comfortable in the process. So that being said, we do have specific appointments for students with disabilities, which you can book through contacting us. We email request them so we can block out extra time for you. We also have lots of resources about speaking to employers about disabilities or disclosure. So if you are looking to build confidence in this area, please do come along to our special events that we offer on these topics. As Henry mentioned, we were going to touch upon some of the events that are offered. So you'll see on our Careers and Enterprise website, there are events in various categories. So we have the Careers Essentials program, we have employer engagement sessions and careers fairs. Specifically, the work that I do is on workshops for international students when it comes to the UK employment market. We did have some events earlier this year that specialised in careers in China as well. So that is something we're looking to expand. But as you can see, once or twice a year, we offer these significant portfolios of events where they're specifically orientated about international students integrating into the working culture in the UK, all the nuances that come with visas as well. So the lovely advice and counselling team that are here today co-deliver on this programme with me to really prepare you for the world of work and give you the opportunity to ask questions in drop-in sessions in between. So hopefully we have you covered on everything you may need to know. That is, in a nutshell, everything that we offer in Careers and Enterprise and everything that we kind of collaborate on with the advice and counselling team. Thank you guys for listening. I think we'll await questions.
Yeah, thanks, Rihanna and Henry. We do have some questions in the Q&A chat box. The first one is from Zara. Is the student consultancy project for postgraduate students?
Good question. So there are a few different strands of the student consultancy project. Some of them are funded by the school and some of them are run centrally through careers. So I think it depends on what school you're in. Some of them are only available for undergraduate students, but I believe our central one's open to all. It's worth checking the distinction though. If you're looking for the school-based project, which is called, SBM Consult versus the Central Student Consultancy Project. So maybe check the opposite one if you are having any issues in your eligibility.
Okay, and the next question is from Annabelle. Are we supposed to do anything else after applying for a job on Q-Temps? She said because she applied for one on there and still haven't heard back. So she's wondering if she should probably visit the office in person to see you, or should just have to wait.
Yeah, so I don't work essentially in the Q-Temps team. It's run by two coordinators, but yes, we do work in the same department. From my knowledge, it depends on who they're recruiting for, whether they can give feedback if an application was unsuccessful. If you haven't heard back that, I would say no news is no news. However, they do have a contact email address on their website. And if you are interested in finding out more about whether you were successful or not, or what changes you can make to a future application to ensure that you can progress further next time, then please do send them an email. I think it's better to email than to go in person, just in case they are not in on that day. I don't want you to make the whole journey in case they're working from home on a specific day. But please do make sure also that when you are submitting your applications, that you have gone to a CV workshop or something like that in advance to make sure your application is really strong at the time that you send it in.
Okay. Another question for you, Rihanna, from Zara. When would be a good time to start applying for the micro internship?
So as you saw from the slide, the micro internship has a few different openings throughout the year. So it'd be about checking the website and seeing when the next opening is, and if that aligns with your lectures. And if you have a really, really hectic semester A, then you might want to apply for it in semester B. There are a few intakes per year. So just check out the details on our website. I'll find a link for you now.
Yeah, thanks, Rihanna. Do we have any more questions? So if people have questions, they can put it in the Q&A chat.
There's also a couple of things in the chat as well, Lisa. I don't know if you want to pick that out separately.
Oh, right. We've just got one new question in the Q&A. Shall we go through this before moving on to the chat? Do I need to be in the UK until my graduate visa decision is issued, or I only need to be in the UK when applying for the graduate visa? Yes, so after you've applied for a graduate visa, you should remain in the UK because you're not supposed to travel outside the country with a pending visa application. If you do, that visa application will be withdrawn automatically. So yes, you should remain in the UK until you have received a decision on your graduate visa. If you have travel plans after applying for the graduate visa, there are some priority services that you can use with extra payments so that you can get a faster decision. Okay, I'm going to switch to the chat box now so that we don't miss the questions in there. First question from FaZe. I have one question. When will we be allowed to apply for the post-study work visa? And if we apply, how long will it take, since most of them are not providing visa for these type of jobs?
I think there's a few questions in that question. So in terms of, they're two quite separate questions. So I'll try and tackle the second half of it. If you apply for a graduate scheme, then you'll be applying about a year in advance. If you're wanting to start a graduate scheme next July, you'll be applying now. Applications open October, close December, the year before. They're very long application processes. But you need to check if you're a postgraduate student, you need to check that your start date of your graduate scheme doesn't conflict with the end, isn't before the end date of your course. You need to finish your course to be able to then work full time. If you're looking for a regular graduate job, they typically are recruiting between 1 and 4 months in advance. So between 1 and 4 months before you want to and can start working full time, that's when you'd be applying. There's a distinct difference between the graduate visa, the graduate schemes, and graduate jobs, which can get quite confusing in terminology. In terms of your graduate visa, Do you guys want to take that side of things so you get the terminology?
Yeah, so I remember covered that. Yeah, for the graduate visa, yes, the graduate visa, or is sometimes referred to as the post-study work visa by a lot of people, where there was a visa way back when it was called that. But yeah, for the graduate visa, you can't apply for that until the university has confirmed to the Home Office that you've successfully completed your course. So understandably, that won't be until you've completed your course and also any marking and awards are being confirmed. So for undergraduate students who are finishing in their normal expected time frame, it's normally around June, July time that people start getting reported for the graduate visa, and then they have until their student visa expires, normally around October, to apply for the visa for the graduate visa. And for postgraduate master students, normally you'll find that it varies from course to course, but awards start getting confirmed in October, sometimes early November time, like late October, early November. And then again have until when the visa expires for most in January, just over the year, to apply for it. But yeah, you have to wait until you've had that confirmation, because yeah, the university needs to tell the Home Office that someone's eligible for that person should be applying for the graduate visa.
Yeah, we also have some questions related to the graduate visa in the Q&A. How does having a graduate visa affect the job hunting as an international student?
And if you've got more experience, haven't you, Rihanna, through helping people with that part of it?
I think this is it's probably quite an intricate question based on this person's individual circumstances. I think sometimes this, without knowing exactly what you've seen or what barriers you might be facing or what process you're taking, it's quite difficult for me to give a sweeping statement on that. I've just popped in the chats, and I've got some job hunting sessions coming up this week, and this afternoon I have a drop-in session where you can come and ask individual questions in IQ East about international students and careers. So if you're interested in that, we can explore the question a little bit further with a bit more detail about your current situation. The answer is not a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah, all I can say is you can work full-time with a permanent role with a graduate visa, so that's permitted with the graduate visa status. Another question is, there's a student considering switching from graduate to one of the sponsor work routes, whether it's worth it to get the graduate visa to get the role, and then afterwards to liaise with the company whether they can sponsor her for that same position. I would say you need to check with the employer. First of all, they have the sponsor license to sponsor you, because it's not all companies in the UK that can do the sponsor work route. They need to have specific employer sponsor license to be able to sponsor migrants to be working in the UK with a specific type of visas. Yeah, so I think that's something that you need to discuss with your employer.
I don't know what your thoughts on it as well, Rihanna, is like when, with the skilled worker sponsorship, there is salary thresholds and the things attached to it. So one of the sort of intention of graduate visa, because there's no requirements on how much you need to be paid while on that visa, it does allow you to build up experience within those 2 years that getting those more higher paid jobs may becomes more realistic. Would you agree, Rihanna?
Yeah, took the words out of my mouth. Yeah. So I mean, if you got sponsored instantly, then great. But like Henry and Lisa are saying, the skilled worker visa, the sponsored route, requires a certain salary level and a certain skill level. So the graduate route does allow you to build the skills and experience and maybe promotion potential over those 2 years. That could mean that you then get sponsored in the kind of level up of the role at the same company or a similar company. And I think if you did start under the graduate route in the company didn't have a sponsorship license and you really impressed them, it may be that if they wanted to keep you on, it's something that they could get as long as the role and the salary fulfilled the thresholds.
I also wanted to add as well, just thinking from a visa practical standpoint, because you may find that you have an option where you can get sponsorship from the employer for the skilled worker visa or carry on with the graduate visa. And and it's not necessarily a right or wrong approach to what you'd go with. One thing to be aware with sponsored visas, so things like the skilled worker visa, is linked to that job. So, for example, if you left the job, if you were made redundant from that job, that affects your visa status, and more often than not, you would need to then get another job that would re-sponsor you for a visa and apply for that. With a graduate visa, because it's not in any way linked to the work you're doing, there is much more flexibility. That if you left the job, so if you started working somewhere and realize I do not want to work here at all, you'll be able to leave that job without it affecting immediately, your visa status in any way. So that's something to keep in mind, I'd say, as well.
Okay, 2 final questions since we're near 1 p.m. Sorry. Could you explain a little bit more on the business idea fundings and the Q freelancer? I think that's a question for you, Rihanna.
Yeah, I popped a link in the chat, so you're free to read about all those programs in detail on the website. There's loads of information on there. So have a scroll through and see what you're eligible for, what the criteria are, and whether that sounds like you, because there's about 5 different programs on there.
Brilliant. Final question. Most of the graduate scheme jobs are 3 years, but the graduate visa is only for 2 years. So there's any possibility to extend this visa, or there are alternatives? So I can say, no, you cannot extend for a graduate visa because you can only apply once. When it comes to alternatives,
I do know some schemes, again, depending on salary levels, will sponsor for the skilled worker visa for that time. And again, maybe just for the final, again, they might do it for the full 3 years. But yeah, I do aware that some graduate schemes do sponsor skilled worker visas for them. But again, salary levels can be sometimes an issue with that. And I do know that quite a few graduate schemes outside of London won't sponsor because the salary level's not high enough. But I do understand more London-based ones are more likely to, I guess, sponsor for it. But yeah, unfortunately, it's not an absolute alternative. If the scheme you're applying for is for longer than the graduate visa and they can't sponsor for it, then you may find that it's not possible to realistically complete that. So it's worth thinking about these practicalities before maybe going down that route. But you can speak to the employer, and quite a lot of them will make clear from the outset whether sponsorship is going to be an option for this, because understandably they don't want to waste their resources and time to find out that someone can't actually complete the scheme.
Yeah, and also if you're doing a PhD or doctoral qualification, the duration you'll get for the graduate visa is 3 years instead of 2. Okay, I think that's about it. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Yes, thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much.